Tonight, a prescription for disaster. A shortage of drugs for life-threatening illnesses, including cancer. Dr. John LaPook is covering. Michelle Miller reports disaster aid for American homeowners is caught up in another budget battle on Capitol Hill. Armin Katayan exposes the new booming business on the internet, payday loans at rip-off rates.
Apparently, loan sharking is still legal in this country.
And Mark Strassman on a new solution to America's unemployment problem. Make a product that every Chinese has to have.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening. We like to think that when we're seriously ill and there's a drug to treat that illness, that drug will be available. But today we learned that we can't always depend on that. A new report tells us that there is a shortage of more than 200 prescription drugs in the country, some of them critical for cancer and heart patients. 82% of hospitals say they have delayed treatment because of short supplies. The Food and Drug Administration talked today about what to do about it, and we asked our medical correspondent, Dr. John LaPook, to bring us up to date.
Today, an FDA panel heard just how frustrated doctors are about the shortage of drugs.
Pharmaceutical representatives spend bazillions of dollars trying to influence me to buy their drug. On most of these drugs, I'm sold. I'll buy them, I'll use them, okay? Just make them.
Drugs used by hospitals make up the bulk of the more than 200 medications in critical short supply. 87% are generic, not brand name. According to the FDA, in the past 5 years, drug shortages have tripled. Valerie Jensen has been studying the problem for the FDA.
Many of them have involved cancer drugs, oncology drugs, as well as anesthesia drugs and other drugs for critical care. So this has had a large impact on patients.
That's what happened to 56-year-old Marcia Goodman. We visited her last month just as she was getting ready to be treated for ovarian cancer with the chemotherapy drug Doxil. But her clinic had run out of it.
I just starting to feel hopeful that this drug was going to work, and so my heart just sank.
She was forced to use a different drug, but has since found a supply of Doxil. The drug remains hard to find. There are several reasons for the shortages. Pharmaceutical companies are cutting production of some generic drugs because they're less profitable than brand name drugs. Shortages also result from manufacturing and quality control problems. Some hospitals and suppliers even begin to hoard some drugs if they get a hint that a shortage is coming.
We're doing everything that we can within our authority.
But the FDA's authority is limited, especially when a company's profits are at stake.
One thing that really helps us is when companies let us know. If they let us know about that, we can help fix that problem.
The FDA does not have the authority to compel a pharmaceutical company to make a particular drug. What it can do is play matchmaker. If one company decides to stop making a drug, they can help another company ramp up production to take up the slack.
John, Marcia Goodman, the patient in your story, I understand that she got her drugs. Is she getting better?
I spoke to her a few minutes ago. She's okay, but after she took the alternative drug for her ovarian cancer last month, she had much worse side effects. She had nausea, fatigue, her hair fell out, and she's an English professor for college. And she's not assured of getting it in the future. She got it this month, but in order to get it each month going forward, she has to fill out all sorts of paperwork, and she called that, quote, a nightmare.
John, thank you very much. There is late-breaking news this evening. Senate leaders have reportedly reached a bipartisan accord making a government shutdown at the end of this week less likely. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, for example, says it has only $114 million left in its disaster relief fund. It says it should last through the end of the week. The people in this line sure hope so. They waited outside a government office in Hartford, Connecticut today to apply for federal disaster relief aid in the wake of Tropical Storm Irene. Michelle Miller found a similar story in eastern Pennsylvania, where flood victims are fed up with waiting for government help.
It's a big waiting game, like we're stuck in limbo.
2 weeks ago, Tropical Storm Lee flooded Shinkshini, Pennsylvania, causing $150,000 in damage to Amy Noss's home.
It's horrible. It smells. You can see we started gutting everything. And
She's furious that Congress would consider allowing the government's disaster relief fund to reach zero. Noss and almost 2,400 other people in this county have filed for federal disaster aid.
it's frustrating. I mean, it's not affecting them. They don't understand what it's like to not have a house to come home to every day or just have your normal life.
80% of my town is devastated.
There is no pharmacy, no gas station, and the town's grocery store does business in the parking lot. Mayor Beverly Moore says her town's future depends on quick FEMA action.
How much money do you need?
To get back to where we were, honestly saying, I would say we need about $3 million.
And are you going to get it?
No. We'll get some help. We just won't get all that we need.
I think the Senate and the Congress needs to quit arguing, forget about politics, and think about the American people.
Businessman James Bach applied for federal disaster aid to rebuild his fitness center. He needs help to cover $100,000 in damages.
This is where the money should be going to help our people get back in business, paying taxes, creating jobs. That's what they're talking about doing, and that's what I'm talking about doing, and that's what they should be doing.
In addition to all of this, Scott, residents displaced by the flooding have two other problems on their hands. One, there are not a lot of places to rent around here, and two, you can't live in a FEMA trailer in this area because it's inside of a flood zone.
Michelle, thank you very much. In the presidential race, a lot of Republican primary voters are dissatisfied with their choices. In a CBS News New York Times poll, only 43% say they're satisfied, while 50% say no, they want more choices. Rick Perry is coming off a tough weekend, and political correspondent Jan Crawford reports on the straw polls that broke the front-runners' momentum.
Texas Governor Rick Perry is in full damage control.
Yep, there may be slicker candidates and there may be smoother debaters, but I know what I believe in. And I'm going to stand on that belief every day.
After stumbling in last week's Republican debate, Perry suffered an embarrassing defeat in a straw poll of about 3,500 conservative activists from across Florida. Businessman Herman Cain pulled an upset, partly because of his plan to levy a flat 9% tax.
Throw out the tax code, and then let's pass my 999 plan.
Conservatives say what they like most about Cain is his positive message emphasizing America's greatness.
Let's push that shining city on a hill back to the hilltop and put United back into the United States of America.
Cain's win shows Republicans are far from anointing a frontrunner. On Sunday, after appearing at another straw poll in Michigan, Perry was crushed by top rival Mitt Romney, who grew up in the state. After his lackluster debate performance, Perry reportedly told party leaders he was tired. But conservative insiders are actively trying to find another candidate to get in the race. Several have reached out to New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who so far has flatly rejected invitations to jump in.
So what do I have to do short of suicide to convince people I'm not running?
Now, as for Rick Perry, Scott, his stumbles particularly hurt at this time because he's out there crisscrossing the country, meeting potential donors, and really trying to persuade them to give some big-time money for his new campaign.
Jan, thank you very much. There has been another major breach of security around the U.S. Embassy compound in Kabul, Afghanistan. Today, one American was killed, another wounded, when a gunman opened fire inside the CIA station there. 2 weeks ago, the embassy was under siege for more than 20 hours, with insurgents raining grenade and machine gun fire on the compound. The CIA station is one of the most heavily guarded sites in all of Afghanistan. The gunman was apparently a guard there, but we haven't been able to learn much more. Last week, U.S. officials said that Pakistan's intelligence agency was behind the attack on the embassy. Those American hikers who were held by Iran for more than 2 years are back home now after being freed for $1 million. Seth Doan reports they have a lot to say about their time behind bars and how the Iranians mistreated them.
While their own mothers said the hikers looked pale and thin, in their first public appearance on U.S. soil, their words were anything but weak.
The only explanation for our prolonged detention is the 32 years of mutual hostility between America and Iran.
Delivering prepared remarks in New York City, Shane Bauer and Josh Vital stared forward, almost expressionless, recounting their days in captivity.
We heard the screams of other prisoners being beaten, and there was nothing we could do to help them.
They were arrested and charged with spying after hiking along the Iran-Iraq border in July 2009. For 781 days, they were held in almost complete isolation at Tehran's notorious Evin prison, sharing a cell that was just about 100 square feet.
We had to go on hunger strike repeatedly just to receive letters from our loved ones.
Blindfolded whenever they were moved, they were given a total of 15 minutes over 2 years to speak on the phone with family. Cindy Hickey is Bauer's mom.
They tested each other, they read books, they had questions for each other to answer the next day, they exercised.
Vital's mother, Laura, says they cut shoelaces from those blindfolds so that they could run in sandals.
They were very serious about their exercise, and they used water bottles as weights in their cell to build muscles.
With their ordeal behind them, the hikers still maintain their innocence.
We do not know if we crossed the border. We will probably never know.
Fellow hiker Sarah Shord was also detained. She and Bauer got engaged in prison, but Shord was released a year ago.
A lot of people are scratching their heads saying, how could they, why would they be hiking there?
We weren't in a war zone. That said, I do feel that we made a mistake in not researching more the area that we went hiking in.
That mistake trapped them for 26 months. But now they say they've never felt more free. Seth Doan, CBS News, New York.
Imagine being charged nearly 500% interest for a loan. It's happening online. Another sharp drop in home sales. And earthquake damage forces the Washington Monument to close indefinitely when the CBS Evening News continues. High unemployment continues to hurt the housing market. The government reported today that sales of new homes fell 2.3% last month. Homes were selling at the slowest pace in 6 months. A lot of folks facing hard times are turning to so-called payday lenders who make loans often at triple-digit interest rates. It's become a fast-growing business online, so we asked our investigative reporting unit to look into it. They teamed up with the Center for Public Integrity, and they found out how some payday lenders get around state laws that ban sky-high interest rates. Armin Katayan has our story.
Ramon Zayas was suffering from prostate cancer and facing mounting bills.
I had to pay the electric bill or have the lights turned off.
So he and his wife got a $250 payday loan from an online lender, 500 Fast Cash. It charged an annual interest rate of 476%. Zayas thought he was paying off the loan, but confusing fees and the high interest eventually pushed the cost to $125 a month on a $250 loan. Like a lot of people, Zayas couldn't keep up with the soaring costs.
I borrowed $250. I thought I would pay $325. I actually paid $700, but it would have been $1,100 had I not gone to the bank and put a stop to this.
Because of cases like this, 17 states have effectively banned payday lending. But Ramon Zayas' lender is shielded from state laws because 500 Fast Cash is owned by an Indian tribe. Today, an estimated 30 online payday lenders partner with American Indian tribes.
If you can become affiliated with a tribe and be able to avert local and state laws, in my opinion, apparently loan sharking is still legal in this country.
Rick Brinkley runs the Better Business Bureau in eastern Oklahoma. He's received 2,000 complaints and says it's unclear who's behind some of these operations.
So the letters coming back from the payday loan companies don't even have signatures on them?
Don't have signatures. It just says from the compliance office.
What does that tell you?
It tells us they don't want us to know who they are.
We wanted to find out who profits from these companies, so we went to the address for 3 online payday lenders owned by the Miami Nation.
I just wanted to talk to someone about your payday loan operation. No, thank you. There's no one I can speak with? No, please wait now, thank you.
Turns out this tribe's payday lending operation is run by a company called AMG Services, which we found in Overland Park, Kansas.
Hi, I was looking for an office manager or somebody.
But employees here wouldn't even say who owns the company.
I'm not at liberty to divulge that information.
In a joint investigation with the Center for Public Integrity, we found that the Colorado and West Virginia attorneys general have pursued these lending operations. In court papers, they claim this man, Scott Allen Tucker, is a key player. Tucker spent a year in federal prison in 1991 for fraudulent business loans. Today, the 49-year-old Tucker enjoys a high-octane lifestyle, racing a fleet of expensive cars, flying on a $14 million corporate jet. And this $8 million home in Aspen is listed in his wife's name, where the property taxes we discovered were paid by AMG Services. Tucker declined our request for an interview, but we caught up with him at this race in California.
Hi, Scott. I'm with CBS News. Can you please explain your connection to AMG Services?
After that, the Miami tribe sent us this letter saying Tucker is an employee of AMG Services and bound by a confidentiality agreement not to discuss tribal matters. The tribe said in a statement that it follows federal and tribal law, and all complaints are handled appropriately and without any harassment.
I don't understand how they can get away with it.
Meanwhile, Ramon Zayas and his wife say even after closing their bank account, they were harassed for months.
They can do whatever they want to poor people like me.
While lenders can dodge state laws, they are not immune from federal law. Just 2 weeks ago, the Federal Trade Commission took the first legal action against an online payday lender tied to a different Indian tribe, Scott.
Fascinating. Armin, thank you very much. America has been losing jobs to China for years, but a company in Georgia is turning the tables. That's next. Boeing delivered its first 787 Dreamliner today, an engineering marvel, but 3 years behind schedule. 500 employees pulled it 100 yards, delivering it to All Nippon, the Japanese airline. The plane features oversized windows, and the 787 is made from composite material instead of aluminum. Boeing has orders for more than 800 of those Dreamliners, enough to keep thousands of workers busy for years. But on a slightly smaller scale, Mark Strassman tells us a company in Georgia has figured out one way to create jobs. That is to make a product that is indispensable to the world's fastest growing economy.
Every week, this factory turns out 10 million disposable chopsticks sold in China. But the chopsticks are made in America's Georgia, a town desperate for these 80 new jobs.
Oh, there was nothing here. You know, vacant building, vacant building, vacant building. Yeah, it's a sad situation around here.
David Hughes and his partner Jay Lee started Georgia Chopsticks last May. Local leaders were skeptical.
Because they were looking for people to hire folks. But then as it went on, it was kind of like, are they really going to make chopsticks?
What seemed absurd, selling chopsticks to the Chinese, turned out to be the perfect business model. China uses 45 billion disposable wood chopsticks a year, but is running low on lumber. South Georgia has forests of poplar and sweet gum trees, ideal for chopsticks. And around Americus, closed factories left hundreds of people looking for work. What kind of a response did you get?
Oh, they had to stop them from coming. There was like 400 came the first 2 or 3 days.
For how many jobs?
50 then.
This county's unemployment rate is greater than 13%. That's more than 4 points higher than the national average. This building was an abandoned bumper factory, and most of these employees had been out of work for 2 or 3 years.
Ricky Hart's making minimum wage now after 2 years without a paycheck. His family of 6 lost their apartment and moved in with relatives.
When your friends ask you what you're doing and you tell them, what's the reaction?
I tell them we're making chopstick. They look at me and they laugh. It's chopstick. Yeah, sir.
Pays the bills.
You have to pay the bill, yes, sir.
There's lessons in this that small town America could be a manufacturing center for lots of small, mid-sized companies. There's people there to work, government's easier to deal with, regulations are a whole lot less. It's just a better environment to work in.
Georgia Chopsticks hopes to add 70 more workers by March. They may not be the only ones hiring. Asian companies have contacted local officials about possibly opening more factories around town. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Americus, Georgia.
We'll give you a first look inside the Washington Monument the day that it was damaged by the earthquake. Coming next. The National Park Service said today that the Washington Monument will be closed indefinitely. It was damaged in last month's earthquake. This camera on the top floor of the monument, more than 500 feet up, shows tourists evacuating by the staircase. Engineers will rappel down the sides to look for structural damage. The monument has gone through shaky times before. In 1854, when it was just 1/3 built, the project ran out of money. And after the Civil War broke out, it stood this way for 25 years. When rebuilding resumed, the original quarry was exhausted, and that's why, if you look closely today, you will see that the monument is one color 1/3 of the way up and a slightly different color the rest of the way. And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, good night.